Fadl Khalid.
Is there any specific dua to say when there's a thunderstorm outside or you hear thunder?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Question is there any specific dua to say when you hear thunder? In general, the hadiths that talk about supplicating during the time of rain, and the concept of thunder and lightning being from the phenomena, what we call the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the thunder praises Allah, and the supplications that explain that, and the tafsir of the Quran. وَيُسَبِّحُ الرَّعْدُ بِحَمْدِهِ. The Ra'd, whether that is the thunder itself, one of the angels, the different ahadith regarding the tafsir of that ayah, praises Allah Azza wa Jal, sings Allah's praise. So there's general supplication to be made. Wallahu alam.
Initials IS, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. How to control one's tongue while living with people who somehow talk about people.
Questions from Minneapolis, Minnesota about controlling your tongue when you live among people who talk about you.
Talk about people.
Talk about people. Al-Muhim, give them advice. Make inkar if they're talking about someone in an impermissible way. Idfa' billati hi ahsanu sayyi'ah. Turn away from them. Repel the evil with good. Don't stoop down to their level. Don't busy yourself with that. And if they refuse to take the advice, which is sound, concrete advice, it's no discussion. This is clearly haram what you're doing. You give them advice. You make encounter them. Then remove yourself from them. Remove yourself from them because backbiting, namima, and things like this oftentimes can become infectious. And they can wear off on you. And then next thing you know, you end up talking about someone impermissibly. And that's at worst. And at best, you become desensitized to the evil of ghiba and the evil of namima, which is very evil. And before you know it, it's a normal thing to just talk about the honor of a Muslim, which is very, extremely dangerous. Wallahu alam.
Initial AB, Brooklyn, New York. Barakallahu feek. What advice would you give a Muslim who says they cannot attend Jumu'ah because they risk losing their career job if they are not present during that time?
Questions from Brooklyn with regards to what advice could you give a Muslim who cannot attend Jumu'ah because they're at fear and risking their career job? There's nothing wrong with a Muslim having a career. And there's nothing wrong with a Muslim having a job in which is not just a job, but actual career. And having responsibilities and commitments. But you have to prioritize. And if it's a career, and in most cases, a career is a two-way street. In most cases, a job oftentimes is just a one-way street. We'll find someone else. You're a laborer, you're this, we'll get someone else. But oftentimes a career, not only do you need the corporation or firm or company, but they also need you. So therefore, make your position strong in which they must comply to your basic request to have an hour or two off on Friday. Bidden, I don't think that's too difficult and too hard, especially if you're a good employee, and especially if you're someone who brings something to the table to that career or profession which you're in. So my advice is to tell that brother or sister to try their best to demand and to request for them to have an hour off on Friday. It's not going to kill you. I'll do extra work, whatever you need me to do, extra schedule, but this is a religious obligation for me, so on and so forth. Do that, inshallah ta'ala, and it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt your career. It's not going to hurt your career. Wallahu alam.
Initials SA, Ontario, Canada. Is it permissible to say, "Oh Allah, because you love me," when making dua if I am practicing? Is it permissible to ask Allah for a husband?
Repeat the question, please.
Initials SA, Ontario, Canada. Is it permissible to say, "Oh Allah, because you love me," when making dua if I am practicing? Is it permissible to ask Allah for a husband who has the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad?
Question from Toronto, Ontario. To ask Allah in the manner in which you say, "Oh Allah, because you love me, then please bless me with a husband with such and such character like the Prophet ﷺ."
It's two different questions.
Two different questions. Okay, the first question, please.
Is it permissible to say, "Oh Allah, because you love me," when making dua if I am practicing?
Perfect. Is it permissible to say, "Oh Allah, because you love me," if I'm practicing? Don't say that. invoke Allah with and by, through His beautiful names and perfect attributes. And if you wish to make a tawassul, specific supplication, asking for something appropriate and specific, then you invoke Allah, calling Him by His names and attributes that proves that He loves His servants. And you don't put something like it's against Allah or over Allah. Because you love me, give me this, as if you're demanding from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You call upon Allah by His beautiful names. Allah is Al-Wadud, Al-Rahman. Allah loves His servants, as He's clearly mentioned in the Quran Kareem. سَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Allah Rahman will give them wood. Those who believe and do righteous deeds. سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الْوَدُودُ. Allah loves His servants. أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. Invoke Allah via those names, those attributes, and those actions. And you don't have to stipulate and say, I know that you love me. Don't say that, and Allah knows best. As far as the second question,
Is it permissible to ask Allah for a husband who has the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad?
is it permissible to ask Allah for a husband that has the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ? Yes and no. The Prophet's characteristic was the Quran. So you want a husband that's trying his best to practice the Quran and trying to practice the Sunnah of the Messenger, the Hadiths. So that's the yes part. But the concept of the Prophet ﷺ's immaculate behavior, immaculate, flawless, like nothing, no one else. You're asking for someone on that status. Do you deserve that? Is that something that you're befitting of, to have someone like the Prophet? And is that even possible in our time? After the Messenger of Allah is gone, Abu Bakr, Umar, is that even possible? So there are basic do's and don'ts of making dua that the ulama have explained. And we've done some classes on these before. It was a few years ago in Bud Lake, New Jersey. We did a lecture on this. Allahu alam, I honestly don't remember the name of the lecture, in the pool of videos. Okay, and that's why we always encourage the people to watch all of them. You have to dig in and take out what you want from the chest. Okay? We talked about, and perhaps we'll do another lecture on it, inshallah. We mentioned the kalam of the ulama with regards to some of the basic etiquette of making dua and asking Allah for something that's impossible according to human standards. Is that okay or not? Okay? Asking Allah, making dua for something to change, which Allah Azza wa Jal has clearly shown in His sunnah that doesn't change. Allah can do anything He wants to do, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But something that He hasn't shown His creatures that happens. If a man is 100 years old and he says, oh Allah, make me a child again. If Allah wants to do that, He could do that. But does that mean, has Allah shown us that takes place? So there are certain things that you should and shouldn't say and do and don't in your dua. What's important is ask Allah for a righteous husband. Ask Allah for a husband upon the Quran and Sunnah. Ask Allah for a husband who's trying his best to copy the Prophet ﷺ. That's more than enough. And the one who's striving to be like the Prophet is going to be better than the average. Not doing it, just striving, just trying. In 2019, a husband that's actually trying to do it the prophetic way is going to be what? A notch above most. Let alone a brother who's been blessed to practice some of the Sunnah correctly and fully. Wallahu alam.
This is AB, Brooklyn, New York. Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling on standing while drinking and walking while drinking? What about standing while eating and walking while eating?
Question from Brooklyn. With regards to drinking while standing, eating while standing, walking, etc. As far as drinking, you should not drink when you stand up. And many of the ulama hold it to be impermissible, unless it's a necessity. All right? And the last of my research on this issue, some years back, the last time I've studied this issue in detail, my opinion and my view from the research that I did was that it's haram and that it cannot be done unless it's a hajjah. Wallahu alam. Ana ba'id an al-bahth fi hadhihi al-mas'ala. All right? And many of the ulama, if not most of them, say it's disliked. Okay? You should not eat standing up, nor should you eat walking if you don't have to. You should avoid it. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Eating is heavier than drinking. The etiquette, your body, so you should avoid it. You should avoid it. Wallahu alam. Fadda Shaykh.
What's the concept of you go to the janaza and the person who given the speech, he says, this brother, this sister, he has done so much, and definitely he's going to Jannah.
Question is regarding a speaker who's speaking at the janaza, and he speaks good of the janaza, the dead deceased Muslim, and he says for sure he's going to paradise, there's no doubt about that, etc. This should not be done under any circumstance. And it could be a means of disrespect to Allah. How do you know what Allah is going to do with this person? If you wish to say good about the janaza, as I said, in moderation, tayyib. This is what we knew from our brother. This is not a eulogy. This is not a wake. This is not jahiliyyah. We're burying him, we're praying to him. Pray over your brother. We knew our brother to be upon good, inshallah. That's it. To say that he for sure is going to paradise, for sure he's going to the hellfire, and to be excessive in speaking good upon him is prohibited. And it could be a means of that person being punished. It could be a means of you being punished. And we all know when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu censured the Sahaba on many instances for speaking about things which they didn't know, based off of what's apparent. This person is from the Jannah. This child is going to be in Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, he asked Aisha, how do you know that? And what did Allah say to Nuh alayhi salam? When Nuh invoked Allah out of compassion and mercy for his son. And Allah said that he's what? He's not from your, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. He's not from your family. إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ فَلَا تَسْأَلْنِي. Allah says, don't ask me that which you have what? No knowledge of. I fear that you will be from among the Jahilin. So it's Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. So speaking about Allah, saying what Allah is going to do, speaking about the unseen decisively, jazman, is extremely dangerous. And I don't think there's an imam or a learned person who would do such a thing. I can't imagine it. Someone who's actually learned that would do and say such a thing, no matter who that person was. Wallahu alam.
Initials NA, British Columbia. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. May Allah forbid your skin from the fire and grant you Jannah. Is it from bad akhlaq to constantly bother your teacher over ilm-based things?
Questions from British Columbia. Is it from good akhlaq or bad akhlaq to constantly busy and bother or pester your teacher over knowledge-based issues? May Allah protect us all from the fire of hell. Ameen. It depends on the relationship that you have with your teacher. Wa alaikum salam. What type of teacher do you have? Some teachers are very to the point. Very, very, very professional. This is the class, this is the information. Khalas. There's no questions. There is no but. This sheikh, that's it. This is what I teach and that's it. Don't ask me anything. Khalas. They don't allow any questions. Or they only allow questions about what they taught you. And there are teachers who are open for suggestions or maybe even for corrections. There are certain teachers who are open for debate. They like to practice with their students and spar with their students. It depends on the teacher. And it depends on the level of knowledge that you have. There's a difference between bothering someone and benefiting the teacher. All right? There's a difference. Wallahu alam.
Initials SA, Ontario, Canada. Is it permissible for a female to do laser hair removal, including the area between the knees and the belly button, including the private part?
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. 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 الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله محمد رب الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة من الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. طيب, repeat the question please.
Initials SA, Ontario, Canada. Is it permissible for a female to do laser hair removal, including the area between the knees and the belly button, including private parts?
Question, Bismillah, is from Ontario, Canada, with regards to getting surgery, laser hair removal for a woman, a female, including the private area between her belly button and her navel. We have a general principle, and that is the aura is sacred, and it's not supposed to be seen or touched by anyone who is not allowed to see it and to touch it on a regular basis. In the case of a woman, it would be her husband. Her husband. And it is unlawful for it to be seen or touched unless it is a state of necessity, durura, or hajatun muliha, a big need by a doctor or physician, someone in the case of medical necessity, or an issue in which is something which is harmful to a Muslim or a major nuisance, and there's no other way of getting rid of it and removing it through the other ways. So this is a very commonly asked question with regards to waxing, shaving, people who have different types of hair, different amounts of hair, people are more hairy than others, etc. The difficulty of waxing yourself, the danger of waxing yourself, how waxing, what it does for your body, how it pleases your husband. It's not like shaving, it's not like plucking, so on and so on and so forth. Is it a need? Is it durura? Is your husband, is he totally turned off by looking at you? Is this something in which your hair is so much, it's harmful, it bothers you, it causes you a great deal of annoyance and nuisance to have so much hair, and it doesn't work if you shave it or do it yourself? Or is it a virtue? No one is going to argue, or a person says, I won't argue on the reality that getting it waxed or getting it removed by laser is 100% better. It doesn't grow back as fast, it's smoother, it's simple, it doesn't irritate me, so on and so forth. But does that mean it's permissible just because it's better? A man says, I like a smooth face. It's better. My baby doesn't pull my beard, so on and so forth. It's more kept. Doesn't mean it's permissible to trim your beard. Just because something is seemingly what? Better. All right? So the aura is not to be encountered and embarked upon unless it's someone who is allowed to do so, such as your husband. And the only time you can encounter that aura or embark upon that aura if it's a what? Durura or haja. And something which is a means of kamal, perfection, is not necessarily haja. So there are many different ways and alternatives that a person can use for removing that unwanted hair. And inshallah ta'ala, if they do it with the intention of pleasing Allah by protecting their aura, perhaps Allah Azza wa Jalla will put the content in their heart and the pleasure in their heart, and this annoyance or this thing will be taken out of their minds. And we all know there's a reality of life. You may marry someone that you don't really like. You may not be attracted to that person, but because they're righteous, Allah puts the love and affection in your heart. And the exact opposite. So at the end of the day, it should not be done. Laser hair removal should not be done in that part of the body unless it's a necessity or unless it's a great need and the person has a great deal of hair, and the other shaving and other self-waxing stuff is useless and it's very harmful, it's annoying, it's something which bothers her husband, then perhaps, then what? Perhaps, and if not, la. Wallahu alam.
Initials AA, Miami, Florida. Which of the four madahib makes the most use of ahadith?
Say that again?
Initials AA, Miami, Florida. Which of the four madahib makes the most use of ahadith?
Questions from Miami? طيب. Which of the four madhahib makes the most use of ahadith? I think that's a difficult question. In reality, you read Hanafi fiqh books, they use hadiths. They use a great deal of qiyas too, but there are hadiths that are mentioned. You read Maliki fiqh books, they use hadiths. Of course, Shafi'i's madhab. And of course, Imam Ahmad's madhab. However, there's a difference between the Imam and the Atba'. A huge difference. So a person can say, which of the four imams use most hadiths? That could be easier to answer. That could be what? Easier to answer. But the followers are different. The followers are of different types. So, for example, you take from among the Hanafis, At-Tahawi, rahimahullah, Muhaddith. You take from the Malikis, Ibn Abdul Barr, Muhaddith. You take from the Shafi'is, Bayhaqi, Muhaddith. Nawawi, Muhaddith. And of course, you take from the Hanabila, Ibn Rajab, Muhaddith. Ibn Jawzi, Muhaddith. All right? So, I mean, I think oftentimes a question like this could be relative. But in general, the madhab that merged the two schools, or a great deal of the two schools of Ra'i and Athar, was that of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah. And Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, and those who followed Imam Ahmad were a branch off of Shafi'i's madhab. And his merging and marrying of Athar and Ra'i together on a scale that was unprecedented. In a sense, Abu Hanifa used hadiths, Malik used hadiths. And they all supported the sunnah and following the sunnah and sticking to the athar. All of them did. All right? So at the end of the day, it could be relative. If I had to pick one, just to say, Shafi'i's madhab. If I had to pick one. And of course, an honorary or honorific second would be the Hanabila. But that doesn't include every Hanbali and every Shafi'i. You read some of those fiqh books, some of those fuqaha are way off. And they're aqisa and use weak stuff and all types of ra'i in front of the hadiths. So the different levels of atba' of madhab. That's a broad statement of madhab. The different generations within a madhab. Everyone understand this? Wallahu alam.
Initials OJ, Manchester, UK. There is a Quran competition that does not allow people with ijazah to enter. If I have an ijazah and enter, then win while knowing about the condition, does this make the prize haram?
Say the question once more.
OJ, Manchester, UK.
For Manchester, okay?
There's a Quran competition that does not allow people with ijazah to enter. If I have an ijazah,
It does not allow people with ijazah to enter. Okay?
if I have an ijazah and enter, then win while knowing about the condition, does this make the prize haram?
طيب. على كل حال, it's a competition for the Quran in this recitation memorization that prohibits people from having an ijazah to enter it. And if I do enter it with the ijazah, but I hide it from them or lie to them, whatever, and win the prize, is it haram? Why do they prohibit someone from entering with an ijazah? Because they want to make it fair for the other students? They want someone who's on a basic level, not someone who's on a level of mastery? Or is it another reason behind that being a condition? In most cases, it's probably the first. Wallahu alam. So you going into the competition and have a major advantage among the other students is definitely wrong. And it's unfair. It's wrong and it's unfair. But just because it's wrong and it's unfair doesn't mean that the prize is haram. It could have been haram for you to enter, but it doesn't mean the actual thing itself is what? Haram. Like getting a job with a fake degree. Getting a job with a counterfeit degree. Or with a degree from riba. Many people, they ask this question all of the time. It's haram to do that, but it doesn't mean that every paycheck is what? It doesn't necessarily mean that. At the end of the day, my advice for everyone is to be careful when it comes to these competitions and these contests of Quran. And what we always say, tajweed wars and scorning other people's recitation and scorning other schools and other countries. And these are the best reciters. No, these are the best reciters. And I have ijazah. You don't have ijazah. I'm better. My sheikh's better. Be careful. You have to be mindful of these things. And it lies no doubt that the shaitan is not going to rest and he's not going to spare the Quran reciters and Quran teachers from playing with them as well. He's going to get them to do things that are haram, to feel away, to say something. He's going to play with them. So be careful. And it allows a lot of pride and a lot of arrogance, a lot of conceit, and a lot of scorn and disdain is included in the whole concept of ijazah. There's no doubt about that. And we've seen many people, many things. People lie about ijazahs. People hide ijazahs. People boast about ijazahs. People think that just because they have an ijazah now they're above everyone else is dangerous. Be very careful with the concept of an ijazah. An ijazah doesn't make you or break you. Doesn't make you or break you with regards to learning how to recite and read the Quran properly and memorizing it, reciting it, teaching it, and acting upon it. Okay? You could be an ijazah and you could be a sinner. You could have an ijazah and you could be weak. You can have an ijazah and you could do something else. So it all depends. All right. It is not going to make you or break you. If you're a good student of knowledge and you have an ijazah, alhamdulillah, it's a good thing. Nur ala nur. But if you don't have any ijazah in the Quran and you know how to recite it properly and read it properly and memorize it properly, alhamdulillah for that. So what's important is be careful of your intention and beware of shaitan. Beware of him. Wallahu alam. Inshallah, we'll stop here. Sallallahu sallam mubarak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabina wa imamina Muhammad.